Welcome to this episode, Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is Liz McGee, and I have, again, a lot of deep meat to impart today. So we're going to get right into it. Last week, I did a teaching. I'm beginning to expound, I guess you would say, is a good word, on the kingdom of haSatan. And it's my opinion that the elect of the last days, which I'm assuming if you're at this channel, you have some clue and you are really in that camp, we need to up our game. There is so much wisdom and knowledge available today, and we need to really get it. We have to get this oil in our lamps in order to stand because of what is soon to come upon the face of the whole earth. We need to have this understanding so we can stand in this last epoch of time. Now, I want to go, I've been last week, and so I would say that it's a prerequisite. You should listen to my video from last week, The Kingdom of haSatan, because I'm going to flush it out a little bit more and try to just really get our box bigger. We got to get our box bigger so that we can understand haSatan. He comes at us from so many angles, and so many angles people are not fully aware or versed or knowledgeable. So remember, knowledge is power. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. There's so much we can know. We are told, and the title of this will be Wise as Serpents. Serpents obviously is a code word for haSatan. So we need to be wise as serpents. And my subtitle is going to be Refuting the Antinomians. Now, that's a huge topic that I will get to down the road. But the antinomian, there is this concept, and there's nothing new under the sun. haSatan is constantly reinventing himself for every generation to try to get them where they're at to follow him. And his baseline is a Luciferian, is do as thou wilt, which really is another way of saying he wants you to reject established morality, the Torah, live like the devil, because whatever, there's really no consequences. So, I mean, this is all, we just have to be at the top of our game in every generation to be able to put up a strong defense. So, last week I covered, because it's foundational, there is a whole, my opinion, this is that the Hebrews, the Torah that the house of Judah has kept, the writings in the house, is a huge body of knowledge, and we need to master it, soup to nuts. I mean, if you're going to be a Torah sage, Torah scholar, Torah teacher, we got to get out of kindergarten. Okay, you know all that. So anyways, I talked about what is known in this, in a Hebraic systematic theology. There are two big theological understandings that we would need to have. There are 4 levels, there are 5 levels of soul life. And I touched on 3 of them last week in depth because it's very important, because understanding the Hebrew words, every word needs to be understood. Forget your translations. From its Hebraic and Aramaic foundation, the letters that make it up, and I'm not even at that level yet, seriously, people, the vowel points and the cantillation marks and the size of the letters. There is so much ways in which the Hebrews pass on understanding. So the 5 levels of the soul, but the first 3 is the one that we really deal with, most of us, on a continual daily breath by breath moment. So you have your nefesh soul life, you have your ruach, and there is the neshama. All right, there's 2 above that, and I will do a teaching on that because it's very important. But you also have those are, and a lot of that is couched today that are in psychological jargon. So much of the truth that the Jews have had has kind of leaked out by some of their own people, Freud and Jung and these people, and been couched or reworded, repackaged in a lot of psychological understandings. But a rose is still a rose, no matter what you call it, and there is nothing new under the sun. The other thing that needs to be understood along this line is the 4 the four worlds, and it kind of parallels the tetragrammaton. Again, there's so much coded into the information into these, Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, which I'm not going to float, but I'm just making you aware. There is a world of physicality, this world that we live in. Gravity keeps us here. Our life force, our nefesh soul, as long as we have a nefesh soul operating in a body, we're quote unquote alive in materiality down here. And that is called the world of Asiya. All right. There's another world right above it. And the world of Asiya, that is basically the problem with the 21st century, the end of the age, is that people have become so dumbed down, so numbed to the larger understandings of our patriarchs and other generations. We think that that's all there is. We have bought into this secular lie, again, that once you die, you're dead, that's it. The soul dies and game over, lights out, and whatever. That has always been around as an option for people to believe, but it is now being purported as, our children, when they go to public, there's just almost no way to get out from under that. Well, that clip of that, it's impossible to get out from under that worldview unless you really and truly become a Torah studied and Torah believing person. All right. But right above that, you have a world of Yetzirah, and that is the world of the soul, the astral level. That's where a lot of these psychological processes in our being go on, and that is the very quote unquote fallen domain. We should all know that. After that, you get into a world of creation, a world of Bria, then there is a world of Atzilut. All right, and that is where actually, ends off our the omnipotent, omnipresent Elohim, who is outside of his own creation. That's where he is, and that's pretty high up there. Most of us, but for all intents and purposes, we function within the first three worlds of Asiya, Yetzirah, and Bariah, and it corresponds a lot to our souls, our nefesh, our ruach, and our neshama. Okay, so those are things just given. So no more, I consider to be part of the choir, and I don't have to explain that. So the driving force of our soul, this is what we don't make any actions in this world unless we have a light and a direction that comes from the depth of our thoughts and our hearts. So in other words, it's also that our heart and our mind operate and originate from these other worlds. So the world of Yetzirah, the psychological world, so to speak, or our mind, which is really your heart, and then your mind, your critical thinking, which totally stops us from the animals, people. This is the thing. This was the crown on Adam's head that he had, that nothing else in all creation had. This free will, this critical mind that could think and then had free will to act. No one else has that outside of Elohim himself, who is made, and we are made in the image and likeness, male and female. All right. So it's important to understand that all of our thoughts and actions is what Yeshua meant, for out of the heart come the issues of life. So this, and it comes from different levels of our soul. All right. It isn't just our body that dictates. Well, this is one thing, a natural man, just his body. He's hungry and that's it. The soul has the ability, the ruach has the ability to soar. That's why it's called equated with the air. It can kind of, like a barometer, it can soar up into heights of just thinking very majestic and praiseworthy things about Elohim. Yet at the same time, it can get all bent out of it can just write great poetry about food. I mean, come on, really. All right. So any action, and the way the ancients, the way our text is written, and it isn't just, my opinion, too, I believe that the Hebrews are the originators and the retainers. I don't know if they're they come from the root of Adam through Shem, through the root that is the original root of truth, morphing into a nation called Israel. But I do believe that the Hebrews have kept the purest understanding of this understanding. But a lot, the nations of the world, the religions of the world have a lot of this understanding also. But to me, it's a much more watered down, impure, much more, and even, whatever. Let's just try to stay very linear here. But they talk about, because so you will find this, when I'm talking about the four elements, fire, air, earth, and water, are all over ancient literature. They're in our Bible texts. And these words are used very specifically, and they have very specific meanings. And I'm trying to educate myself and then educate whoever else wants to know what these things are referencing. Because it's insanely deep, accurate. I've never seen, there's no system of classification on the planet that can equal this. All right. So to review, and from this level, the levels, these levels refer back to the different levels of our soul. So in other words, the neshama, it is equated with water. Well, fire, air, and earth, all right, levels of the soul. So holy fire, and there's, now, this is where I'm going to start to make parallels. What we understand is these words, so what these words are describing, levels of the soul that operate in different levels, or, what's the word I'm looking for, dimensions, or places of origin. All right, and just because you can't see it with your physical eyes doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This is the point. So the neshama soul, which is for all intents and purposes for a righteous person, a born again person, someone who is righteous in before Elohim, is operating their soul levels at the program of neshama. All right, they have a breath, a spirit. They have access to because he breathed into Adam. They are back up into the original archetypal, prototypal, not even the word, sphere of where Adam came from. All right, this is the point in the neshama, which is equated with fire. All right. It comes from the aspect of it is a female aspect that comes from Bina. Bina, and this gets, and I've done a lot of teaching this, people, that Bina is our, quote unquote, our heavenly mother, the feminine aspect of the divine energies that come down to us, all right? But there is always an opposite. So in other words, to understand the kingdom of haSatan, you have to understand it always parallels. He is a shadow. He's an imitator. He's, the world that Yahweh Elohim set up, haSatan completely mimics and shadows, and the Bible has very coded words that will tell us specifically if the prophet's trying to tell you something about the other side or the righteous side. So in other words, the right side or the left side, as I've kind of explained. So holy fire emanates from the female aspect of Bina, our heavenly mother. Opposite it, there is foreign fire. That so this is why you will like strange fire. This is what they're talking about. And think of it as demonic, unholy, demonic, fallen energies. All right. So you have holy fire, but you also have strange or foreign fire. So that's one way they tell you. There are two sides to this coin. All right. So in our ruach, in our spirit, which is ascribed to air, which even though it's translated sometimes as breath, it shouldn't be. It's really wind or air or spirit with a little s. And this is an area where this is like our barometer. So if we want to ascend up to the Father in our thoughts, in our actions, in our praises, that the Ruach brings us there. That's the job of our soul. It's programmed to do that. Conversely, if you want to just elevate something on a lower soulish level, it will do that too. Because you got to understand something. The spiritual realms were set up in the lower to obey our every wish and command, so to speak. All right? I mean, they don't do anything on their own. They do what you tell them to do, basically. This is a huge principle that's coming out. So anyways, the Ruach is in this level. There's a holy Ruach, this is the male counterpart, and it forms Dot, which is, DAAT, which is a word in the Bible. I've done teachings on this. But there's also, quote unquote, an impure spirit or an impure air, an impure spirit. We know this, and this is equated with the evil inclination. It is called viper. All right, the venomous sting or bite of the viper. That's what it's referring to. The left side, the demonic fallen energies over there. So there have to be words to describe these things. All right, and then the animal spirit. So the snake is many times refers to, is why it's a viper. A viper is a snake, and why those words are coded to go together: the serpent, the snake, the viper, and and the mind picture it makes up, because I've said this, but Hebrew is very concrete. They always use words. This is the point, that if you get into the mind picture of the word, it paints a very clear picture. So you see a snake slithering around, and the whole way a snake operates, and then it's hidden, and then it just comes out and bites you. The bite of the serpent. All right. And then you have the last level of the soul, the earth, which is refers to our nephesh soul, which it literally is our animating life force in our body, and it's a very much of a low level, but it's an animal soul. But I've been through all this. You gotta have it, because you gotta eat. The programs that run to make you want to put on a sweater when you're cold, and make a fine way. You do need to, as long as you're living in the body. It is a good thing to have this soul level. But on the flip side, the impure animal soul, nephesh, is equated with an animal soul, or the evil inclination. And last week I flushed it out as the Yetzer Hara. Okay, so these are important things to understand. Now we're going to move into I want to show you how some of these concepts, because like I said, you have physical reality, we have a body, and we have a soul life, our ruach, our emotional life. We have a higher life, so that have a neshama, which is connected back to Elohim. Now, and they operate in distant spheres. So the evil inclination literally operates in the cells of our body. This is what Paul said. This is why our DNA is fallen. It's so. The left side, that they talk about, the angel on the right side, the angel on the left side. We got two, and they're both whispering in our ear. Which one are you going to listen to? And then if you listen to one, you're going to get a blessing. If you listen to the other, you're going to get a curse. If you listen to one, you're going to walk in obedience. If you listen to the other, you're going to walk in disobedience. This is the whole concept. Okay, so, but what's important to understand is there's a chain. This is what it means by a root system. And this is why they relate things like to a tree. A tree is still one organism. We're talking about one thing, but there's so many different parts of it. You got roots underground you don't see. You've got a trunk, and then there's all these processes in the middle of the trunk. And then you see this thing makes branches, and then it makes leaves, and then it makes a bud and a fruit, a flower, and then a fruit. There's a lot this is what there are a lot of parts that you can take apart and analyze, and there's a whole at the same time. And this is the whole point of the Shema prayer. This is the whole ancient Hebraic understanding, which we need. Shema Israel. Listen here. Listen up, people. Adonai Eloheinu. Adonai Echad. Even though we can look at a lot of the parts and get a lot of information, you never take apart or the working parts of the cosmos, or the mechanism, or the beings that are part of that, and worship them separately. It's all a sinister, it's all a whole. So, this is why, okay. But what's important to understand is that every action done in the physical world causes a corresponding action in the spiritual world. This is as above, so below. This is the principle. So nothing, nothing is hidden from the eyes of the angels who are recording every thought, word, and deed you do, and is not visible to Adonai. He sees everything. This is the point. He can see through all the different dimensions. He doesn't even have to put on a pair of glasses, and he doesn't even take him time. I mean, in one glance, he looks at you, and he knows exactly where you're at. And the point, and the bigger picture of this whole thing, let me just say, he is hesed. He is a loving Father. He would rather have mercy, and save you from your dilemmas, whatever they are, if you would just look up. I mean, free will people. He can't. You're not a robot. He can't just make you. Now, he can apply a lot of pressure to get your butt going in one direction or the other, but ultimately, your free will. So just do it today. All right, just humble yourself. Call upon the mighty name of our Father. Now, so in other words, what I want to say, in action in the physical world, it causes an action in the spiritual world. This gets into kind of what charged particles. See, now one thing I say, once you get an archetype, once you get a correct understanding of how a word, a theology, or whatever is used, and it's like a template, and you can take it and you can apply it to anywhere else where you see the similar thing being spoken over, the similar words, and if it fits, then you got truth. If it's not fitting, something's out of oil, but be that as it may. So I'm going to go into 3 kind of different Bible verses to show, because my other thing is I really want people to really, how deep our text is. Stop apologizing for it. Tell the world that they don't know what they're missing. This is the deepest, most coded, esoteric book in the world. And what was I going to say? It is really written for the initiated. The Bible is really written for the wise. This is why it says, get wisdom. Everybody can read it, but most people are out there clueless. And so it is written for the choir. And that's what we, the elect of the last days, are being called to get up to speed and be able to read your text, right up there with the best of them. I would say on the level of Adam Cademan. I mean, why not? We have the mind of Christ. This is the point. We can do this. Now, there is I'll give you 2 stories so that we can understand. In the Torah, there is the story of Balak, that Pinchas, the grandson of Aaron, who the priest, killed Zimri, who was the head of the tribe of Shimon, who was involved in corrupt sexual acts. I don't have the verse where this is, but if you're Bible literate, I'm sure this story is ringing a bell. This was during the time of Moshe and others. And with a woman from the other side. Now that's but the seed of the serpent. And I've taught a lot about this. If you understand, not everybody on the planet is the same. So this woman, he's engaged in corrupt sexual acts, lust. This would be a total tip-off. He's acting under the mazal of the other side with a woman from the other side. This lewd act severed the connection of the Israelites, which caused an immediate drain of energy. In other words, it interrupted the flow of blessing. This is why it's so important. This whole concept, we totally lost. If you allow sin in the camp, which is what we wonder why we're powerless, the church today, all of it, wonder why we're powerless. Well, I think it has a lot to do with how much sin we are just excusing and allowing to drain, because Yahweh, be ye holy, even as I am holy. But let me get back to this. It created an opening that allowed negativity to come and for a plague to spread among the Israelites, killing 24,000 of them. Pinchas stepped in and rectified the situation by removing from the Israelites the cause of this negativity. In other words, cut it off at its head. Whatever. The plague stopped immediately. This is a principle that's getting on people's radars, and what we need to understand, and why it is so important for, I say do Torah, be blameless, do Torah, stay in the house. You cannot overemphasize. This is the whole point of the halakha and the law. You cannot overemphasize this. But it's okay. But there is such a connection. What I want to say, that any action done in the physical world causes an action in the spiritual world. So in other words, that sinful act caused a plague. It was an opening, so that the angels of chastisement could come in and punish the people. All right. And conversely, when someone righteous rose up and cut it off, it stopped immediately. And there's a lot more in this, but there is a principle going on, and this is what our Bible text, the stories, are telling us over and over. So let me go into one other. I'm going to go to Job, because I want to illustrate a couple of things, how these words are coded, the keys to the kingdom. So if you don't really understand kind of the coded understanding, the concept of parts, the deeper meanings, the mysteries. See, that's a level of a mystery. We've lost that understanding. All right. Now, in Job 38:31, there's a very famous, the whole chapter 38 is a very famous, which is a chapter. I'd love to do teachings on it, because I love the part of me that loves the reason of Jewish mysticism, because it really gets into the physics of the metaphysical worlds, the worlds above our world of physical, our world of Asiya. So the father, Job is in this discussion with Elohim, and the father is saying, hey, Job, can you bind the chains of Pleiades? Or loose the cords of Orion. Okay, now we just think, oh, well, whatever, they're talking about stars, whatever. But let me just tell you what, this is the point. How did Job get hold of this piece? And it's in our text. How did he have an understanding of what we consider to be the 20th century interstellar astronomical information? All right. How did the ancients, see, this is the lie we have. The ancients were way more savvy about how the heavens operated than we could ever hope to be. This is really, in my opinion, true. So in other words, what this verse is telling us is that we know now scientifically that the Pleiades is a gravitationally bound cluster, while Orion is gravitationally loose. You can get into this whole kind of binding and loosing. Okay, but anyways, I won't get into that. But so in other words, another way to say this, the Pleiades, what they know scientifically, they are bound to one another by mutual gravitational attraction. And they have roughly the same chemical composition. It's not by accident. This is a cluster. This is a nest. Now let me say another thing. This is likened. So why birds are used so often scripturally as coded words for angels. All right, and this is what, and I've told you before, stars are angels. They're angelic entities, which doesn't mean they're up there, smoking a pipe with a body and a head. They are intelligences. They are living beings with souls and jobs to do. All right, and they answer into Elohim. I mean, this is nothing in all creation is dead. I should put that in quotes because, all right, anyways. So in other words, this star clusters they're gravitationally attracted to each other, and they have roughly the same chemical composition, and they are likened and comparable to a swarm of birds. This is why, and this explains why I was saying before that any action in the physical world causes a corresponding action to the spiritual world, and there's so much information. This is why there's a whole form of magic arts, and I forget what the name of it is reading the spiritual, reading the heavens, reading the birds, the flocks of birds, how they fly, different things, and gaining information of what's going on gravitationally, what's going on out there, and how it could influence us. Because the whole point, I said, the Milky Way, as I said last week, is Leviathan, is the serpent, is this whole Milky Way that's directly above us is what is influencing us. It is our mazal. What they're doing their properties, their powers, that's why they're called powers and principalities, have direct influence on the earth and on human beings, on everything. I mean, the sages will tell you that not even a blade of glass, even a blade of grass has a influence or a mazal or a guiding angel star over it. Okay, so let me get through this. So that's why it's comparable to a swarm of birds flying together to a distant goal. All right. Now the thing that's very interesting in this, and is if we had the ability to continue to study the heavens as closely and accurately with the original understanding as the ancients had, let's say even as Daniel did and could, we would see movement in ways that is incomprehensible, because these things are moving. They're flying together at a distant goal. Now, also, I want to tell you, the Milky Way is the dimension of time. And in time, there is this whole concept of Gilgal, of the spheres, of things, and this is it just goes around and around and around. All right, so there's a lot of information. Can you bind the Pleiades? I mean, Job and Elohim are having an extremely deep conversation on how the whole cosmos works. All right, then you have, or loose the cords of Orion. Orion's belt, and this is why another way Orion is the cords or the belt. Orion's belt is the complete opposite. So in other words, can you bind? So stay Pleiades is gravitationally bound together. The opposite is true, where the cords of Orion is formed by two main stars, a lot of little stars, but unlike the Pleiades clusters, the stars in the hand of Orion do not share a common trajectory. So remember I told you these flock of birds are going in the same direction. They have a destination, a goal in time. It's really interesting. The Pleiades, I get that right? Or Orion's belt, it does not share a common trajectory. In the course of time, Orion's belt will be loosened, just as Elohim told Job, when time will be no more. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. I mean, oh my gosh. Okay, so don't ever let people tell you that, okay, the Bible's written for kindergartners. Now, all right, now this one I want to go into. Because this is, again, all leading up to an understanding, because that's the Mazzaroth. That's why the stories in the Mazzaroth, you have sort of the good guys and the bad guys. You have sort of, have a dragon that's going to devour the woman clothed in 12 stars. There's a lot going, because in the domain of the heaven, there's a war going on. All right? And a lot of this information and understanding is couched. Our Bible does tell us about it, but we have to have a deeper level understanding of how these words are used in order to even begin to mine the gold, the riches that is really there. Another one I want to say here, this is in Zechariah 5:11. There's a very famous, verse, especially for, whatever. I'm going to read a little bit and then flesh it out. I see, Zechariah 5:11, I see a flying scroll. The prophet is shown something in his mind, in his consciousness. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just that he's not there personally, because he's still in his human, but he is there in his mind, and Yahweh is showing him something. I see a flying scroll. Its length is 20 cubits and its width 10 cubits. Then he Elohim said to me, the prophet Zechariah, this is the curse that is going forth over the face of the whole land. Now, what's important to understand, the curse, that's another code word that should tell you, the serpent was cursed in the level of the heavens, and this is telling you that we're beginning to deal with negative energy here, or demonic forces, all right? Surely everyone who steals will be purged away according to the writing on one side, and everyone who swears will be purged away according to the writing on the other side. A scroll, so it's a scroll that has writing on both sides. Declares, I will make it go forth, declares Yahweh Elohim, and it will enter the house of the thief and the house of the one who swears falsely. I can't go into what, oaths and this whole thing. We know that was a big thing. And obviously a liar is a sinner. I mean, that's pretty obvious. So we're talking about people who are engaged in activities of the other side. All right. My name, okay, wait a minute. I will make it go forth, declares the Lord of hosts, and it will enter the house of the thief and the house of the one who swears falsely by my name. And it will spend the night within that house and consume it with its timber and stones. Okay. Now, what this is talking about, this is really kind of painting a picture. There are many levels of understanding, but in one sense, this is painting the picture of a soul, a person whose actions are emanating astrally. Their thoughts and intentions of their heart are emanating from the other side, and they are sinning, right? So, in other words, in the house, what I want to say is, the house is representing the body. Okay, so another way, the house is being used on one level as our tabernacle. Okay, our earthly body, our tabernacle, our temple, all these ways, our vessel. All right, so and this curse is going to come on this person, this vessel, this soul, and it will spend the night within that house, in that person. In other words, and night is another code word for the left side, the demonic side, and it will consume that house with its timber and stones. Timber and stones is another way they've coded architecturally. Timber would refer to the bones, and stones refers to the organs. Okay, so I mean, what I'm trying to, the problem, they know exactly what they're talking about. So when these code words or these pictures, I mean, it's not falling, like Zachariah doesn't have to ask. He's not in kindergarten. He knows what the words, he's got the picture here. So this curse, because remember, if you disobey, you're going to get a curse. All right, it's going to come on this soul. All right, but so there's some more verses, but I wanted to flush that out. And then it says, and behold, a lead cover was lifted up, and this is a woman sitting inside the ephod, or the container. Then he said, this is wickedness. So in other words, these are pictures that are painted that are showing us the left side is literally, it's a gravitational, there are real physics to it. The woman refers to Lilith, which is always a code word for demonic, feminine demonic energies. Remember, he made the male and female. So you have to understand there's male or female, but not gender. I try to explain all this, but in terms of a left side and a right side of the brain, there's different ways they function. So the woman Lilith is sitting inside the ephod. This is wickedness. In other words, it's just painting a picture of this level of soul life where these realms, these dominions, these places where these things function is origin and come from, and then it's leading into these actions. But the point I want to get to here, and behold, a lead cover. Then he said, this is wickedness, and he threw down the middle of the ephod and cast the lead weight on its opening. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and two women who with the wings of storks are unclean animals, and they lifted up the ephod between earth and the heavens, which is the ruach. See, this is all happening in the soul level of the ruach, which I said is air, is wind, is equated with the heavens. Or lower heaven. So what I'm trying to, it's all, you can really understand this. Once we have an understanding of the code words, how the theology that's wrapped around these words, it just all makes sense. I mean, it's very simplistic, actually. Even a child can understand it. So anyways, where are they taking the ephod? Then he said to me to build a temple for her in the land of Shinar, and when it is prepared, she will set it there on her own pedestal. Okay. And we know that Shinar, the land of Shinar, refers to Babylon. And I believe in a lot of sense, the prophets also being told, because of the sins of the people, they're constantly working from the other side, their actions. I mean, Babylon's going to be built. Babylon is going to be the final, the buck stops here, the final chastening, governmental, in a sense. I mean, there's a lot of that's going to come upon the people for chastening once they just keep going too far. All right, this is all built in. The system is built into self-regulate and self-balance itself. Okay, but the point I want to do is lead. This is interesting because, see, again, every Action done in the physical world causes a corresponding action in the spiritual world. That's what the ancients see. When you study, this has bugged me for the longest time, the elements. You read Enoch, and he's really into mountains of silver and lead and tin and all these different things. And I'm like, what are they talking about? But this is an important principle. But there is truth. I mean, they can't just, the ancients, they can't just assign a meaning to a word unless it's really true. Like, in other words, you wouldn't call the serpent and snake unless the way the snake operates in the physical world corresponds. Like, yeah, I get it. You know, also I want to say the snake, he became a snake, he's slithery because he's very close to the ground. Satan was cast out. Satan is constantly, he's coming down and down and down in levels of influence. But that's another whole thing. So I want to tell you a little bit about lead, wickedness, which is so interesting. In its real physical properties, lead is a real element in the earth. It's one of the elements. It's very malleable. It's very dense. And it is a poor conductor of electricity, of light. Okay, very interesting. It is believed also to be the oldest metal. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is they didn't pick lead for no reason. All right, there is deep information in lead that we can gain to really elevate our consciousness to understand what we're dealing with, and a lot of, okay. Because one thing we have to understand is plagues and this whole idea of the storm wind, because these are all the storm wind, the fiery cloud, the storm cloud, the fire. Which one was this one? Lead. These are all words that are describing chastening angels, if you can say, forces that chasten people who get over into the left side. I mean, it's what Yahweh says. If you're my people, if you're one of my sons or daughters, and you get into the left side, I am going to chasten your butt to try to get you out of there, out of that level of influence and domain, out of haSatan's kingdom and back over to the right side. We get blessings. This is the point. So, but lead comes from a root word. See, I just want you, I'm going to go through how deeply coded these things are, and they never break archetype. And also, so also about lead, it is toxic. It is completely toxic when it is retained in the body, especially builds up over a long period of time. That's why I have problems with lead poisoning. All right, a soul given over, a soul. So in other words, if your soul, this is the point, it's toxic. If you stay in the left side too long, eventually you're going to lose your soul. It is toxic over there. All right. So the word lead comes from, it's number 5777 in your Strongs. It is from a root word of ophir. So the word in Hebrew is opheret. It comes from a root word ophir, which means a fawn, a hart, a gazelle, but is used in the Song of Songs for, this is where there's, because the Song of Songs is a highly coded mystical text in which they use all these code words at the highest level. And it's all talking about, on deep level, all of this information, but it talks about how the gazelle, it talks about how, okay, so how do I even say this? So the archetype, so let's just say even women have, men have two breasts, all right? One on the right side, one on the left side. Women, when you suckle, because from the left side, which is also the feminine side, which is not completely fallen. It's just, I want you to understand, people, the kingdom of haSatan functions, and actually it says it literally in the Zohar, only in the lower two sephriths, sephrith 8 and 9, so to speak, down. So gravitationally, or in terms of flow or emanation or influence, it is actually a very fallen and low level influence. But if you're suckling from the breast on the left side, that's how they're saying you're suckling from the left side. All right. Conversely, if you're suckling from the breast of the right side, you're your milk and honey. You're suckling from the good side, and you will receive the blessing. So, in other words, even the anatomy of the body, the way the words are used, and the way they're functioning is completely consistent. All right. So that's what I want to say. But in even more interesting, on an even deeper level, which can't even begin. I'm just beginning to be able to understand the theology, what's going on. But this gets into the whole concept of gematria, which is the whole concept of every Hebrew letter is attached to a Hebrew number. And it's sort of almost like a cross, and it's almost like a cross balancing, or what do they call it? Like our government, why we have 3 branches, because they, a check system, keep each other in check. So a lot of times the sages will add up the numerical value of the word and see what else has that same numerical value. And it should tell you, it should be consistent with the theology that is on different levels of these words. So the word for lead, which is a word that is coded to represent the demonic forces on the left side, it comes up when gematria to 800. Now, if I'm correct, so if anybody out there, somebody wants to do the math, David, if you're listening, check my gematria. But this is what I came up with, was 800 by taking each letter and then you add it up. It's the words that have the same gematria, it's so interesting, is the word handmaid, which if you get into the 2 covenants, and Hagar was a handmaiden. So again, it has a concept here. The word leper, the word doe, the word destroy, the word judge, the word world, which is a word cosmos. We get the word cosmocrator, the word adulterer, the word smite, the word hide, and the word vinegar, just to name a few. Now, I'm telling you, if there's not some tracking going on in those words and in the whole concept we're talking about, to me, no human brain could have been smart enough before computers to figure this all out and code this all out. To me, it's got to be divinely inspired by a higher intelligence. Sorry. All right. So the last one I'll do on this point. So this is what I'm saying is going to help us. This is what I'm getting ready to do, to build a website, to try to really make a syllabus, to try to make, just to impart what I can understand so far about these code words and theologically how they're tied together, which will help us totally open up the text again. That's what the key is. A key gets in there. So I did this one with my watercolor painting behind me of the door. You got to have a key to get in there, all right, to the whole world of wisdom and understanding. All right. The last one is fire. Okay, and I did flush this out in another YouTube. I was going to look it up. I can't remember what it was, but But the word brimstone. Because you always hear these words, fire and brimstone. Because what I want to tell you is there is always a corresponding earthly element that kind of gets attached to a spiritual reality. So by understanding the earthly element, you can get a lot of information about the spiritual reality. That's how they have to do it, because we can't see spirit, right? So fire and brimstone. And at the end of the age, he's going to destroy the earth with fire and brimstone. Well, what are they talking about? See, this is what I mean. The evangelicals, oh my gosh, you're embarrassing us out there in the world, because you don't have the true Hebraic mind. You don't have the mind of Christ yet in order to flesh this out for a world that is quite jaded and cynical. So anyways, fire and brimstone. Brimstone is sulfur. It's the same word today, all right? And this is what I mean. Don't even for a second think that these ancients did not know these elements, what they are. Knowledge in world history is always lost and always found. We're just coming up out of some great, well, actually, we're not coming up out of great darkness. We live in an era, like I said, the Satan's ploy is to reintroduce all this concept with totally different words and terminologies and totally separate it from the Most High. All right, that's the game that's going on right now. Sulfur is also, in a couple of it's a very smell of rotten eggs. A lot of times, and this has even happened to me, if you, a lot of people will say when they they feel demonic presences. It smells like rotten eggs. This is a phenomena that many people have recorded, and I will testify to it too. It smells like rotten eggs, all right? It smells like sulfur. And these elements are energetically connected, like I said, to metaphysical counterparts. Now, brimstone, like I said, sulfur compounds are responsible for the unpleasant odors of decaying organic matter. So if a soul, I mean, it's weird. If you're on the other side, you are decaying. You're death. You're going down. There's no hope. So it all tracks. It all comes. It's all saying every line of it, every precept of it is building upon the same concept. So, and there's a lot more that I could say. Because sulfur is a very dark colored semiconductor. I mean, there's a lot of information still. And I also believe that these demonic forces and also Yahweh's heavenly forces, the Holy Spirit, emits, gets transmitted, infiltrates. Our body is made up of chemicals. We're nothing more than made up of the dust of the earth, which is the elemental chemicals of the building blocks of physical life. So, all that being said, I'm going to end here with, so that's everything I want to say in that, because I want to end on something as we flush out, and I'll just go deeper with this, because there's a whole subject that I don't think a lot of people teach on, and it's got to come out, that it's been wrapped into the Jewish, the mystical text, the soul side, the code words that they use to describe this whole world and phenomena is called the Sitra Achra and the Clip-Off. All right. So next week I'm going to pick up and I'm going to flesh out a lot in the code words and the understanding of what we can know about the kingdom of haSatan, because, like I said, we're to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. We are supposed to understand him so we can defeat him at his own game. All right. So my last point, and why this antinomianism is an important kind of word and concept also to begin to get on our radar and understanding. And a lot of this is couched in this whole dialogue, I guess you'd say, in the best word you can give it, the nicest word that goes on between, in Hebrew Roots Women's Day, the big thing that, was Paul a false apostle? Did he preach against the Torah? Was he, was he dividing from the early church, and to me, nothing can be further from the truth. You just don't understand Paul as a Kabbalist, and he's explaining these things on using all of this understanding of the upper worlds and the soul levels and what now is available to the being grafted in now, lost tribe or Gentile, and how it can work, the physics of how it can work now with having Messiah ben Joseph done a very specific fulfillment of prophecy with these things for us, getting us reconnected. Okay, so, but what's important to understand is in the story of Cain, all right, so Cain is the first wicked man, the first wicked hybrid man, truly. He is of the first of the seed of the serpent, all right? His father, this is the whole point, and deeper levels of this. And, I have some YouTubes on it, and there's a lot of people fleshing this out bigger. It says that Cain went off after he murdered his brother Abel, which tells you right there, his influence is from the left side, hello. And he goes off and he builds a city. All right. So he built, on one level, what this is telling us now, because this gets into the whole antinomian mode of operation, methodology of haSatan, really and truly. To get us to build a city means that he built a doctrinal system, the Cainites. So what I'm just trying to say is, if you're tracking this, the Cainites is the first group. who gets hooked up with Esau, with Ishmael, with this whole story, how the Herodians, the Sadducees at the time of Yeshua, the Luciferians today, the elites. This is a true, this thread of this root system of operational boots on the ground from the left side is very real and has always been there. All right. So what it means, when he built a city on one level, Cain went off, he built a city. That means he built a doctrinal system of lawlessness, insolence, and immoderate indulgence in pleasure. All right. This is, gratifying the lusts and the desires of the flesh. It's what it's always about. And in the Epicurean philosophers are of the school of Cain. That's the whole idea. The Luciferians today, do as thou wilt. You are your own judge. If it feels good, do it. Doesn't matter what Torah says. That's all right. So they claiming, the Epicurean philosophers are of the school of Cain, claiming to have Cain as teacher and guide, who recommends the worship of the sensual powers and in preference to the powers above, and who practiced his doctrine by destroying Abel, the expounder of the opposite doctrine. Now, see, there's so much depth of understanding of what's going on in the story of Cain and Abel, but this whole the secret power of lawlessness that is at work in the world has been going on since then. All right, you see, we need to get up to speed on a lot of this information. But this is why Yeshua would talk to certain groups, and he didn't say to the whole Pharisees. This is the point. We have to be a little critically thinking. He's saying this to a group of Pharisees who are elevating. There's a whole, I'm not going to get into this argument, and he says to them, "You're of your father, the devil." All right. You say one thing, you live another way. Ding, 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 ding. Bells should go off when you see people do this. Okay. This is, you got to walk the walk and of the talk you talk. All right. You will know a tree by its fruit. If the talking and the walking don't line up, it's like ding, 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 it should be going off in your brain. So anyways, I just had to say that because when you get into the kingdom of haSatan, the thing to understand, there's many levels, but there's one level. There's always wicked people. There's wicked generational Luciferian people. There is the serpent who operates in the world of the astral, the ruach, in manipulating, keeping people from ascending on high. And there is and so that when you could to keep people, it's like it says he's the god of this world who puts a cover, a blanket. He tries to really lock down people's souls so they don't elevate. They don't really can't get up to the neshama. But he's a failure. In other words, so to end off here, I'm going to go through this huge list of so many of the different ways which the kingdom of haSatan is used and coded, just to begin to make us understand that it's huge. There's so much information. We do not need to be afraid. In other words, right, we're not cavalier. You're not stupid. You don't take Satan on. You stay under the Shekinah, under our, the Father. He will protect us. He is more than able. More our angels are on the side of the righteous than at Satan's disposal. So, but we need to be able to get up to speed on others. So I'm going to do this marathon run, hopefully, in this last part of this portion. Now, we all know that his main principal name, one of them, is Samael. It's A-E-L, S-A-M-A-E-L. He is the prince of the demons and the fallen angels. He's also known as haSatan. He is also known as the devil. He is the snake and he is the serpent. Those are some of the words, and he is always involved as being an accuser, a seducer, and a destroyer. All right. The venom of, now these are other ways in which in all of the texts across the board, Christian and Jewish, he is portrayed. And on many different, give us information on many different levels. So he is the angel of death, the venom of Elohim. Because the serpent, is venom of Elohim, the angel of death. death came into the world. He has the keys to the bottomless pit. He is the chief of the Satans, and so in others, and I don't mean that's why haSatan is a title. Believe me, there is one archangel called Lucifer, all right, who is the head of it. But there's tons and tons of lesser fallen angels. There's rank. There's rank and file. There's many, all right. Okay, he's the great prince in heaven. He was one time a great prince in heaven. He rules over angels, fallen angels, and powers. He is the incarnation of evil. He is the celestial patron of the sinful empire of Rome, which is coded, and this is a whole thing, and I've touched on this a little bit. It's a very important understanding for us to get today, because all right, so let me the incarnation of evil, he is the celestial patron, or in other words, he is the God, like I said, the gods of the 70 nations, an archon, over the empire of Rome, with which Edom and Esau are identified. In other words, these are ways the prophets have tracked the movement of haSatan. Okay, remember how Daniel talks about the different kingdoms, the beast kingdom and because in other words, these are coming forward in time. So in other words, in Zechariah was saying, this principality is going and building a house for wickedness, and it's going to be called Babylon, and Babylon is going to turn around and bite, whoop your butt. Okay, so but today, or historically especially, for the house of Judah for thousands of years lived under the influence of Rome, Christianity, which, if you study out the history, people, I'm sorry, there's a very bad brother against brother. Oh my gosh, what the Christians have been guilty of doing to the Jews, their brother, all right, and they are coded with Esau and Edom, all right, and are identified that way. Now this is an imprint. He is identified as an angel with 6 wings. He equated with the Hayot and the Ophanim, which have only 6 wings. So he has fallen. He used to have 12 wings. And okay, so this is part of how they talk about how he has fallen in influence. I went through a little bit, and I didn't write the book. This is just some of the ways in which this information is transmitted to us. An angel that has 12 wings versus 6 wings. Obviously, I've said this many times, 12 wings is better, more power, all right, has better abilities. But now he has been demoted to an angel with 6 wings, and he commands a whole army of demons. One of his names is Belial, especially in the Dead Sea Scrolls. He's known as Belial, worthless. At the creation of the world, he was Lucifer. You can go into Ezekiel and get a lot of information before he fell. His opponent, there's a whole piece I will flush out more and needs to be really fleshed out. His opponent is Michael, the archangel. So this is why you always get in a lot of the literature, Samael and Michael will always appear in the court or the throne room of Elohim. One is an accuser, one is a defender. But his archenemy is Michael, and that's why Michael fights for us. He's our defending angel against the influences of this fallen angel, haSatan. He is identified, as I said, with the serpent, and he's with carnal desire, the Yetzer Hara. So I told you, it is equated with the Antichrist. And yes, there are people that you can identify as Antichrist, but in its larger generic sense, an Antichrist, because Christ is related to the word anointing. So you were either anointed with the truth, or you're anointed, so to speak, with a venom, with a deadly. Okay, it gets into wine is another. There is, bad wine. There's a lot of ways in which they do it. So we can't just always think of Antichrist in terms of a person per se. It also is an influence. You're under either a holy anointing or you're under a false anointing. The serpent is also told to be a magician. It's another really big, important. I think it gets a lot today. I mean, we are really seeing ramping haSatan as he's a magician and a shapeshifter and a worker of magic arts. He's the blind god. He's the Gnostic god Yaldabaoth. He is the demiurge. He retains, Samael retains the role of prosecutor. Michael is the defender. All right, Samael the wicked is the head of all devils. He's the chief of the tempters. It is he who rode on the snake in the course of the fall and with Adam and hid in the golden calf. See, so these are ways in which they're telling us, but this is really what it's talking about by the golden calf that they made. It was such a problem because they were worshiping the gods from the other side. All right, so the guardian, so there is always a war going on between him and Michael, the war in the heavenlies. This is it talks about. Michael, who is the guardian angel over Israel. And this war will not be completed until the end of days, when Samael will be handed over to Israel in iron shackles. Is one way it is portrayed in Jewish midrashic literature, but also in the Christians, it says that, he will be destroyed by Yeshua. People could say in one level is Michael, and by the breath of his coming. I mean, he will be defeated. Samuel does not know the path to the tree of life, and that's good news. Samuel was considered the angel, in a lot of literature, he is considered the angel in charge of Mars. Now, in some of the literature, different angels are equated with, that's considered to be angelology, but it's not all false. You don't need to be afraid of it. You need to educate yourself. But Mars, which is the planet of war, oh, are we surprised? The typology is bearing itself up. The angel in charge of Tuesday, because also these entities are linked with days of the week. Samuel and Lilith are portrayed as a couple in the kingdom of impurity. So, as I always say, the Lilith here is the angel of the feminine angel on the left side, and Samael is, so you have this unholy couple. They are the leaders of the Sitra Achra, which is the other side. And this, I say, I'm going to flush this out next week, which is the side of evil. You have, I've said this, that Samuel and Lilith constitute only the 8th and 10th Sephiroth of the emanations, and the snake has become the symbol of Lilith, and Samuel will rise on her. And this is in a lot of what they're talking about in the Milky Way, in the dragon and the serpent. There's a lot. See, these people are not making this parabolic language up just to be poetic and to be flowery. If you were initiated, get the deeper understandings. Okay, put some glasses on, or take the blinders off. See, this is haSatan does not want us to take the blinders off. He wants to have us be led by him, the blind God. Okay, and he's also known in the Gnostic text and also in English as the son of chaos. So, all that being said, it is a pretty heavy and tough subject, so pray for me, but I just think it's really important. We have to up our game, people. We are children of the light. We have a message for the nations because it's getting very late in the game, and we need to, as I always said, the message is, tell the wicked, woe to the wicked. If they don't get out of that left side influence, it's toast. But tell the righteous it will be well with them. Believe me. More, what does it say? That greater is he who is in me than he that is in the world. Okay? So on that note, shalom, blessings, and we'll see you next week.